Sing a song full of the faith that the darkness has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Sing the rising sun, our new day begun. March on to victory is won. Stony the road we trod, the chase we walked out in the days when unborn has died with us day. We have not our weary, we come to the place where our Father's house. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the soul. The glory past till now we stand at last, quickly from the starry sky. God of our weary, of our silence, tears thou hast brought us thus far. And thou who hast by thy might led us into the night, forever in the path we pray. We pray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Blessed our hearts, drunk of the wine of the world, we forget. In shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand. Our God,
Thank you all very much. My name is Edwin Sumter, and I am co-director of the Boston People's Reparation Commission. I'll briefly go over today's agenda. First of all, again, I want to thank everybody who's here on such a bad day, but you came out. Thank you so much for doing that. This marks the 12th consecutive month that the Boston People's Reparation Commission has held a monthly meeting or event. We just celebrated 1 year old, and we've done it with the support and brilliance of our community, who's been the #1 reason why we put this commission together. So thank you very much. Happy birthday to us. The agenda for today. We had the welcome by Dr. Reverend Kevin Peterson. Leo Bishop did the blessing. That national anthem was just sung. I'm doing the overview. Heather Cook will come out and go over the House rules. Our first speaker will be Monica Richardson, who will do a presentation on her family, followed by Reverend John Gibbons from the Arlington Street Church, who will give us a report on reparations and the role of the white church and what's been going on that side with reparations. We'll then take a break, and then at that point, we'll then move into the discussion. You'll have 2 moderators and 4 panelists who will be up here. There will be a moderator in the audience as well to field questions. 7 questions will be answered to our 4 moderators moderators who are faith community leaders from throughout Boston, and that discussion should take about 90 minutes. We then will have a final speaker, Dr. Grandiston, and if we have time, we may have a special added attraction and treat as well. Yeah, every meeting announcement. So that's pretty much where we stand. You have your agenda in front of you. I'm going to pass it on now to Heather Cook to go over the House rules. And again, I'm Edwin Sumter, and thank you so much for coming out here and on the platform.
Thank you, Edwin. So again, my name is Heather Cook, co-director of the Boston People's Reparations Commission. And again, welcome everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I'm sure what I'm about to say is not going to be new to most. As it relates to the House rules, we want to make sure that we remember that we are in a space and the conversations that we are having are purposeful, they're important, and they need to happen. Now, we also realize that these conversations can be triggering for some. And so we do have people who can assist if people are feeling overwhelmed. They can excuse themselves and step out. But we ask that you be respectful to the panelists, no outbursts. We will make time for questions, comments, and if people have their own testimonies to share, we'll be able to afford you that opportunity to express yourself. But please, we want to make sure that we're respectful to ourselves and everyone in the room. And so I also don't want anybody to feel as though they're being silenced if they're told or reminded that it's not the appropriate time for them to speak. So what will happen is when we go into the questions segment, people will raise their hand and they will be pointed out, and we will address your questions in that order. Now, as it relates to our speakers, we're trying to keep this timed, and so I will be the sergeant at arms, so I will be keeping track of that time. So again, I ask everybody, please be patient with me. It's just we want to make sure that we are affording everybody the opportunity to speak. For anybody who needs the restroom, straight out the door to the left or on the other opposite side of the librarian desk. So I think I've addressed those pieces, and from there we'll move on to the next portion of our program. And again, thank you, everybody.
I'd like to now introduce one of our speakers who is going to give us a review on her incredible family legacy in the United States from the 1700s right up to present day. Let's welcome Monica Murchison.
Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Monica Murchison. I'm a Boston People's Reparations Commissioner, and I'm here to share my family's heritage. My family roots start from Igbo, Africa, and spread across the U.S. I am a descendant of Jenny McLean. She was born around 1785 as the daughter of Igbo parents who were forcefully brought from Nigeria to America. She was sold and separated in Virginia at the age of 8 and later found herself in North Carolina. There she was willed or sold more than 4 times between 1793 and 1865. Although Jenny began her life around unimaginable circumstances, as a matriarch, she began the foundation of a legacy that would stretch across centuries. At age 15, Jenny met Joe McLean, and together they had 14 children. Their children were also willed and sold to different families. Remarkably, Jenny lived to be 95 and Joe 70 plus years old. But with the help of DNA, the descendants of Jenny and Joe have been identified. Over 200 plus DNA matches, some are 100% Nigerian, and all are connected to the Igbo Nation. Jenny's story is now immortalized in a documentary that is named A Slave Named Jenny. And you can find that documentary on YouTube, which includes a powerful soundtrack. And as descendants of Jenny, we wear t-shirts symbolizing the breaking of chains, which speaks to the triumph of freedom over oppression. And next, I'll talk about my third great-grandfather, Jack Murchison, and his son, Evander Murchison. So Jack Murchison was born in North Carolina in 1795, and he died in 1922. He lived to be 127 years old. His early years were shaped by labor on a plantation. However, he never lost dignity instilled by his ancestors' words, planted deep in his heart, and they would blossom in the most remarkable ways. Jack married Anna Monroe. From that union, 13 children were born. In 1865, when freedom finally came, Jack purchased 200 acres of land. From that, a community took shape. And Papa Jack's land became a vibrant African-American community known as Murchison Town, including homes, schools, a cemetery, and also chapels. The work was grueling, clearing fields with nothing but an ox and sheer willpower. Papa Jack was a man of faith. Therefore, the chapel named Bethel AME Zion Church was built. His church was independent from any church affiliation. He built the church at his own expense without any aid from the Freedmen's Bureau and without joining the Union. He built not only a church, but a community rooted in strength and shaped purpose. Jack's children worked alongside him in the field and listened to his sermons. He instilled in them the belief that education and unity was key to ensuring the family's freedom and prosperity for generations to come. His son, Evander Murchison, carried on our family's spiritual legacy, and he founded Pilgrim's Rest Holiness Church. So both Jack and Evander's legacies endured. Their descendants, including me, continue to carry forth their vision of faith, resilience, and community. Each generation added new chapters to the Murchison family, ensuring that the seeds Jack planted would continue to grow. Both churches still to this very day are operable. Long after his passing, the descendants gathered to maintain the land and keep Murchison Town thriving. Evander's grandson, Russell Murchison, which would have been my grandfather, moved to Boston, Mass. And married my grandmother, Ruth Murchison. Together they had 9 children. One of these children would be my mom, Barbara Murchison, along with 2 of her brothers, Russell Murchison Jr. and Quentin Murchison. The fighting spirit that stemmed way back to our Igbo ancestors continued. All 3 of them were members of the Black Panther Party. They were seen as symbols of protection, guardianship, and spiritual guidance. They campaigned for prison reform, held voter registration drives, and organized free food programs. They challenged police brutality and also launched more than 35 survival programs. There isn't enough time to discuss everything. However, I'll discuss being a child and being told the story of how my mom and uncle's involvement in the Panthers resulted in a cocktail bomb being thrown through my grandmother's window, and my family's house was set afire by white supremacists. Today, standing before you, I represent generations after generations of sheer powerful individuals who were civic activists and contributed to the shaping and building of this country. The Murchisons built generational wealth, and the descendants such as myself and children deserve to be compensated. Thank you all for listening and allowing me to share a story, not a story, but a testimony.
Amen.
And I am the descendant of Jenny Murchison. Really quickly, we were supposed to have the life. Okay, that's fine. All right, thank you all.
Thank you. I just quickly wanted to say, I know Monica through the commission, and to know Monica, and to know her story, and then see the connection of her legacy is just jaw-dropping. Because if you knew what she's been through personally, you'll understand where she gets the strength and her resiliency from. So Monica, thank you for sharing your family legacy. Next up, we have Reverend John Gibbons.
This is the very first time I've ever preached from a laptop. I want you to know that the first time I met Dr. Peterson was at a demonstration in Copley Square, and he was preaching from a laptop. And I, as ever, am learning from Dr. Peterson that laptops can be an aid to the Holy Spirit. Yesterday, I watched the premiere of the new film biography titled Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer spoke to our reality 75 years ago. A Lutheran pastor and theologian, he stood up against Hitler, and he was hanged for doing so. From prison, he wrote, "We have learned a bit too late in the day that action springs not from thought, but from a readiness for responsibility." Readiness for responsibility. Amidst white supremacy culture, this is what has been missing in predominantly white churches. Passing the buck, pretending not to hear violence, that is not coward, that is only cowardice in the face of responsibility. Bonhoeffer also said this: silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. White churches in Boston were in the forefront of white supremacist colonialism. There is a lot of nostalgic Yankee Doodle Dandy Freedom Trail, may I say, bullshit about colonialism, the Bay Colony and the 13 original colonies and the cradle of liberty at Faneuil, what we call Slave Trader Hall. Colonialism, in reality, we must not forget, is one, the subjugation or extermination of indigenous peoples, and two, the extraction of wealth from those subjugated for the benefit of the colonizers, with the stolen labor of enslaved people being the most profitable and sinful of racist schemes. Colonial churches were the spear point of colonialism, and white supremacy in Boston, inasmuch as they falsely and blasphemously proclaim the tacit divine approval of God. Predominantly white churches, therefore, have a special responsibility to reckon with this legacy of racist complicity. Amen. I must be quick to say that a problem here is not just the failure to be ready for responsibility, but let's face it, white churches as they were then are not as they are now. The Arlington Street congregation, where I am now affiliated, was once the flagship of wealthy white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Boston. But its congregation is now so poor and dissipated in its facilities in such disrepair that Boston Magazine once profiled the poverty-stricken church and called it the divine dump. Many of the colonial churches no longer exist at all, and others exist more as museums than as faith communities. There are exceptions. One predominantly white and still strong church has a collection of 6,000 rare books, amassed by a slave-holding and slave-trading 18th century minister, a collection now valued at perhaps $25 million. There's blood on those books. And knowing so, its ministers and congregation are now considering selling the collection with proceeds to seed a major reparations fund. Other congregations, the Episcopal diocese among them, have already initiated such funds. Other churches still have priceless artifacts, stained glass windows, or collections of exquisitely engraved colonial silver, all amassed with blood money acquired in the slave trade or actually crafted by enslaved artisans. Quite a few other predominantly white churches, many without significant financial resources, are nonetheless wrestling with how they may meaningfully contribute to the cause of reparations. In recent months, with Pastor Valerie and Reverend Kevin, I convened 2 meetings of white church leaders, one held at Old South Church last May, and the other in September at Arlington Street. There we adopted a confession of spiritual sin and a call to sacred atonement, reparations, and reconciliation. It's quite a document, but a key line is this: as leaders of predominantly white faith communities, we confess we have breached our most sacred ethical expectations. We are not one with ourselves or with one another, nor with our God. More than 20 white faith leaders signed this confession and call, and a similar number of BIPOC leaders signed as witnesses pledged to hold us accountable. A few copies are available here today, and They can be sent to you, and if they're not already posted on the People's Reparations Commission website, they soon will be. And we still need additional signatures, white and black, and you are welcome to speak to me about that. I've got the sheet. A third meeting of faith leaders is now scheduled for January 15th, MLK's birthday, this time at the Emmanuel Episcopal Church in Back Bay. There we hope to take a deeper dive to make our commitments more tangible. As one black preacher once put it, to tangibilitate our commitment. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that today we face unprecedented and daunting challenges with the incoming administration. Indeed, it may be said that the cause of reparations is on the verge of astonishing and shameful success, so long as we are willing for the beneficiaries of the proposed reparations to be the scandalously oligarch of wealthy white American men. Exactly as the post-Civil War promise of 40 acres and a mule was reneged upon, and compensation was instead diverted to the white slave holders who, by emancipation, were deprived of their stolen enslaved labor, and exactly as black people were denied the 20th century benefits of Social Security, federal home loans, education, and other benefits of the post-World War II GI Bill, we are now on the verge of extreme, ludicrous, and sinful reparations to wealthy white Americans at the expense of the poor, the black, immigrants, and the marginalized. I close as I began by quoting one of those who resisted fascism in Nazi Germany. In 1942, Catholic Bishop Clemens August von Galen preached what has come to be called the Anvil Sermon. At this moment, he said, we are the anvil rather than the hammer. Other men, strangers, renegades, are hammering us. Ask the blacksmith and hear what he says. The object which is forged on the anvil receives it not alone from the hammer, but also from the anvil. It need not strike back, it cannot strike back, it must only be firm as an anvil, only be hard. However hard the hammer strikes, the anvil stands firmly in place and will long continue to shape the objects forged upon it. If it is sufficiently tough and firm and pure and hard, the anvil will last longer than the hammer. Today, on a great variety of fronts, many of us are feeling extremely hammered. None have been hammered longer or more severely than Black Americans, and none have endured as much and as courageously. We in the faith community, both Black and white, must, however, be both anvil and hammer. For all our days, let us be prepared and meet them ever alike. When we are the anvil, we shall bear, and when we are the hammer, we shall strike. Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Action springs not from thought, but from readiness for responsibility. Let us all be ready. It is past time to tangibilitate reparations. Say amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much. John, thank you for being an ally. Thank you for being unwavering. Thank you for being a supporter. And thank you for being a beacon for us and for these efforts. We really appreciate you. So as we go into a quick 5-minute break, we're going to ask our panelists to step up to the front so that we can segue after that short break. If anybody needs to use the restroom, again, it's around the corner, just beyond the librarian desk. Please help yourself to some refreshments, and we will resume the second part of the program. Thank you.
Testing.
Excuse me. May I have your attention, please? My name is Reverend Conte K. Thorpe, and I am Senior Advisor to the Black People's Reparations Commission. Excuse me, hello? I'm talking, please. Can we have 1 second of silence? Thank you. I'd like to call Brother Murchison up, please. We'd like to recognize you. Stand. Give him a round of applause. He is a Black Panther, and he's the uncle to Monica. Oh, we can do better than that. Wow. This brother's put his life on the monitor. Thank you. Black power. I'd like to also recognize Dr. Grandson. He's a doctor, has been a part of our team. Thank you for coming. I'd like to recognize Sister Linda Besson. Is she here? Sister Linda? Hi, stand up. Yeah, stand up. Hi, thank you. She's a long-standing member Thank you for coming. We appreciate you. We'd like to recognize Sister Kelly Fawcett. Is Kelly here? Well, can we give her a round of applause, please, for her work? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. That's all we're gonna do.
So I'd like to welcome everyone back to our event today. And I'd like to start with introducing my co-moderator. That would be Reverend Devlin Scott, who is a pastor of New York City, New City Church in Newton, and managing director of Unite Boston. Reverend Scott is a relationship leader dedicated to Christianity, committed to diversity and inclusion, and passionate about people. Devlin has a Bachelor of Arts in Communication from Trinity International University, a Master of Arts in Biblical Studies from Midwest Theological Seminary, Master of Divinity from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and a Master of Arts in Bioethics from Trinity Graduate School. He owes all he does to the unending support of his wife, Katie, two sons, Ian, age 10, and Alden, age 7, and their two fur babies, Coach, which is a Boston Terrier, well, and Lewis, which is a mountain cur. Well,
hello, everybody. Allow me to introduce you. Thank you.
welcome, John.
Allow me to introduce you to Tavis Carter. He's a licensed alcohol and drug counselor and addiction specialist who has been working in the field of substance use disorder since 1995. He is also a graduate of Springfield College, where he earned his Master's of Science degree in organizational management and leadership. And he is also a former adjunct professor at Springfield College. Mr. Carter has also been in group and private practice for several years now, helping many individuals and families impacted by substance use disorders. He recently established the Carter Davis and Associates LLC and his conversational workshop called Race in the Workplace. And we are your moderators for the evening. We gather as a community of faith and conscience to engage in a critical conversation on reparations, not just as a policy matter, but as a moral and a spiritual imperative. This is a space for truth-telling, for listening, and for discerning what justice requires of us today. The theme of faith and reparations is both ancient and urgent. Across religious traditions, we find a call to repair what is broken, to reconcile with those who have been wronged, and to restore dignity to the oppressed. Faith communities have been central to both the harm caused and the healing that is possible in addressing systemic injustices, particularly racial injustice in Boston. So tonight's discussion will explore these connections and invite us to reflect deeply on the following: faith and reparations, the African American experience and religion, repairing the nation's foundation, the role of the church, faith in Boston's reparations work, and prioritizing repair. So as we delve into these topics, let us approach them with humility, with courage, and a conviction that real change is possible. Tonight is not just about conversation, but also about sparking actions and fostering partnerships rooted in faith and in justice. So thank you all for your willingness to engage in this vital work, and let's begin.
So I'd like to introduce the first panelist, Minister Sabina June Martin. She is a mother, was raised in Roxbury, and is currently serving as the Poverty Scholar at Union Theological Seminary at Cairo Center, a clergy council chair with the National Union of the Homeless, and a minister with Freedom Church of the Poor. She is deeply involved with the Massachusetts Poor People's Campaign. Her work has earned her a doctorate in Humane Letters, 2019, and the prestigious MLK Drum Major Award, 1988. She has a lifetime commitment to activism and justice. Her grassroots organizing, leadership in housing and poverty initiatives, and ministry bridge faith, race, and social change.
Danielle Williams is a proud Roxbury native and the executive director of Prophetic Resistance Boston, a group of Black and Latino pastors and congregation members who have moved from within the four walls of the church to engage communities of color in Boston by listening to their individual stories and moving those collective stories to action. Danielle's organization is renowned for their assistance in those with a quarry, a record of someone who has been criminally charged regardless of conviction, sealing cleansing. Please welcome Danielle Williams.
And next, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Pastor Valerie Copeland, who is a native of Boston, Massachusetts. Valerie received a certificate in urban studies from the Community Fellows Program of Technology in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1995. And she received her BA in Community Planning and Management from the University of Massachusetts, Boston, 1998. Over the years, she's discovered a passion for blessing adolescent girls and women to live healthy, whole, and purposeful lives. In October of 2007, she was ordained as a pastor at Life Church Ministries. Valerie lives in Roxbury with her husband, Al. Let's welcome Valerie.
And finally, Reverend Carrington George Moore, who is a distinguished pastor and executive nonprofit leader celebrated for 18 years of dedicated service in community advocacy and religious practice. Originating from Youngstown, Ohio, Carrington serves as the associate pastor of Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Boston, Massachusetts, where he leads the Christian Education and Discipleship Ministry. He is currently a doctoral student at Union Theological Seminary at Columbia University and New York City, where his studies center on public theology and social justice. He resides in East Boston with his wife, Chanel, and their son, Langston. He remains deeply integrated with both his community and family, embodying the values he champions. Please welcome Reverend Carrington. Tonight, this is your panel, and we're so great to have them. So let's give them one more hand. We're going to proceed now with questions for our panel. Our panel is going to have the opportunity to respond to each of these questions, taking about 10 minutes to do so. And then we're going to open up the floor for questions from you. I will be moderating here from this podium with those questions for the panel, and my co-moderator, Tavis Carter, is going to be handling you all in the crowd. All right? Let's get started. Here's our first question. Explain your thoughts on how the faith community goes hand in hand with reparations. Whoever wants to go first.
I ain't scared.
So the faith community goes hand in hand with reparations. I speak specifically from the faith of Christianity. But when we talk about reparations, I think it's important to start with the definition of terms, right? Because we're all sort of thinking about different things. Reparations really has to do with dealing with something that's gone wrong, or money being paid to make amends or compensate for a wrong. It's an indemnification for loss or damage, satisfaction for any injury or amends. It's something we're very familiar with because when we have to sue somebody, right? If we win our lawsuit, they compensate. It's a repair. So this is really not a foreign concept. We deal with this concept all the time. But I just want to say specifically, I want to speak to financial reparations because I understand the repair of the tear in human relationship, but sometimes we get stuck there and forget to talk about the money, okay? So, so Black people deserve to be compensated for not just their labor, but the ways in which there were governmental actions that prevented accumulation of wealth, right? But I think, particularly as a person of faith who is rooted in the scripture of Jesus Christ, I think there's several places we see reparations within the scripture. The first place why I see it is when the Israel children are leaving Egypt, and God tells them, you're going to plunder the Egyptians. So they don't leave empty-handed. You don't send a bunch of people out into the desert with nothing. And so God allowed them to plunder the ones who had enslaved them, that had gained wealth off of them, and said, this is what you, now, he doesn't call it reparations, but I don't know what else you would call it. I think in addition to that, we see reparations with Zacchaeus, the tax collector, who had been exploiting his people, taking more than what he should have. And we see when he encounters Jesus, he says, I'm going to give what I have earned to the poor. He says, here now I give half my possession to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times. Reparations. But I think the one place I want to land is when we look at this conversation, which often happens, I didn't have slaves. So therefore, how am I responsible? Well, if you're a person of faith who is guided by the scriptures, we look at the Good Samaritan parable, and we see someone who deals with someone who was wronged and harmed by someone else and takes responsibility for that harm and that injury at their own cost. And Jesus points to that as loving your neighbor. And so when we understand what repair looks like, you don't have to be directly responsible for the injury. If I have a neighbor who is hungry, I don't say to myself, I'm not responsible for that person's hunger, right? I didn't cause that condition. My job is to meet the need of that neighbor. And so just as Jesus took on sins that weren't his, when we see people who are hurt and injured, however God has called us to meet that hurt and that injury is what we're supposed to do. So reparations is about repair of relationship, repair of truth, the way in which people have a narrative of lies have been told, and repair financially. That's what we're about.
Thank you so much, Pastor Valerie. Anyone else? 2 minutes for sharing.
Hope this, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sister Valerie. Thank you so much. This is a very heavy conversation, but a well-needed one. And my heart is open. I just want to take a look through the lens of a child, right? And how the faith community has played a role in a very complex time. The role of the abolitionists, right? The role of the enslaved, the role of our parents. I can remember as a little girl, I lived in the St. Philip's Parish in Roxbury. And it was a time when the Black Panthers were mobilizing and organizing in the community, but it was also a time where we were being displaced by redlining. And I remember my parents lost their home to redlining, and I tell this story all the time. And I'm going to tell you why I tell this story all the time. Because the emotional damage that my parents, particularly my mother, suffered from when they moved us from the south end of Boston into Lower Roxbury, into a housing complex. I believe it was at that time where not only my family, but the entire community impacted by redlining, having their homes stolen from them, dashed their dreams once again. And that's what we've been going through century after century, decade after decade. And I'll leave it there. I raise my voice in the spirit of elevator. Sometimes people get a little funny over it, but we feel this and we should own it. So I just want to land there about compensation. Yes, give us our reparations. Nobody should live on the streets and the subway stations and shelters. We shouldn't live there. And neither should we have our poverty paid for. Or just give them this, just give them that. Meanwhile, we never get a chance to pull ourselves up from our bootstraps because we have no scraps.
Thank you for that. That is just amazing. All right. Anyone else want to chime in?
Hello. When I think about reparations, I think about repairing damage. And I'm one of those people, I like to identify what is damage. What does damage mean? When we talk about spirituality, when we talk about our ancestors, that is spirituality. That is spirituality. When we talk about our ancestors, that is sacred. That is sacred. And when we identify this as a spiritual journey, the damage is what? The damage is white supremacy. White supremacy is a demon. And we've got to talk about it. When we talk about spirituality, we got to be honest. When we talk about this journey of freedom and liberation, it's not about just freeing Black people. Because when we get free, everybody gets free. Everybody. I'm a former legislative aide. I worked in politics for over 20-something years. I never thought I would be sitting and talking from my spiritual voice. Never thought I would. But in politics, all the years that I was there, the policies that we worked on, I am a former aide of Gloria Fox, who is now an ancestor, my mentor. She is the reason I am sitting here. Again, our ancestors, spiritual journey. We walk with them in life. We hold them in our hearts. So to me, reparations is about repairing our spirituality.
Thank you, Dana.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's good to see you all today. I'm Reverend Carrington Moore. I stand here or sit here representing two institutions, Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, but also serve as the executive director of Common Cathedral, which is the first church of its kind in the country that's dedicated is serving those who are unhoused. I say that because I think about the person of Jesus. There's a great scripture that says, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of God has nowhere to lay his head. In other words, Jesus was unhoused. Jesus was homeless. And so I really come from that perspective. And so I think the first thing we have to do in terms of how does the faith community play a role in the reparations movement, I think first we have to free ourselves from the ideology of whiteness. In other words, for me, Jesus was a poor melanated Palestinian Jew wrestling against Roman supremacy. And so very much Jesus identifies with black folks. Jesus, the work that he was doing, he was, if I was to be honest, Jesus was an organizer. He was engaged in movement building. The organizers that he trained, they were called disciples. So in other words, for me, when Jesus came down from high, because I believe Jesus was both God and man, I believe Jesus woke up and said, this is how y'all living? This is what y'all dealing with? You all deserve better. So if I was to sum up the gospel, I would sum up Jesus' thesis statement in Luke chapter 4, verse 18 this way. Jesus says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because God has anointed me to preach good news to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to proclaim the year of Jubilee, or the year of liberation, or the year of repair. And so for me, as I'm working as a pastor, dealing with folks, black folks who are trying to navigate white institutions and working with people who are unhoused on a daily basis, it's first important for me to free Jesus from the ideology of whiteness and really center Jesus in the person that he was, which was a liberator.
And with that, we bring it to you. What questions do you have? Some rich information that was shared from our panelists. Davis is in the audience to connect with one or two of you who want to ask a question.
We have one here.
I want to thank everybody for being so vocal and expressing their heartfelt feelings with regards to what reparations means to them. I want to go back to the fact that, and I'm going to say this every time I come to the meeting, the educational piece of it is the repair. So we're asking people for reparations, whether it be cash reparations, tangibles. They don't know the history, or they do and they're ignoring it, or pretending that they don't, and we don't either. So when we're in the community, I'm talking to people, I'm like, what is reparations? What are we asking for reparations for? What are the harms? You know, how do you want to be repaired? And how do you quantify us? Our people cannot give us answers. So we have to start building those kind of conversations, because we're getting too close to the finish line, and I'm really worried. The task force for Boston may have the report done by next month. And guess what? We're not ready. We haven't had those conversations in the community. And I want to take my hats off to Kevin. He is the only grassroots organizer who has these types of meetings, but we're not getting down to the brass bones. And the brass bones is, what are we asking for? When that report comes out, it's going to be academia. Most of our people may not understand that. So we're going to have workshops to break that down to people. Not only that, we're going to have to counteract it, because that report's going to be whitewashed. It's going to be the traditional history. It's not going to be through the lens of American freedmen, who are our people. We know better how we've been harmed than anybody else. And then they're going to say, what are the recommendations? When I walk around and I talk to people, they talk about current day. Antonia, I'm homeless. I'm getting ready to be home. Antonia, I lost my Section 8. Antonia, I bumped my toe. Antonia, I need this. Antonia, I need that for my kids. That's not going to cut it to ask them for reparations. You're asking them for to account for the legacy of slavery and pay us. And everybody's looking for money. And the city of Boston doesn't have that kind of money. It's the federal government that really owes us the debt. So what is realistic that we're looking for in the city of Boston to pay for reparations, or the white clergy? And what are they paying for? Nobody has sat down and said, we want paid for this, we want paid for that, we want paid for that, and this is how we quantify it. So I really appreciate this event. I was really kind of concerned as to what it would be about. I've learned so much about the spirituality, but in the spirit of our ancestors, we have to be smart about this. We have to sit down, we have to have these meetings just like this and break this stuff down in the community. Because if we go to this meeting with the task force and they have this report and we don't know what we want, we're gonna blow it. And we're never gonna get this opportunity again. And or they're gonna make decisions for us. It could be a housing program. It could be something that doesn't benefit us directly. It could be a lottery. And the bottom line is we want input. The community wants input for ourselves. And this is the perfect time to get this stuff done. We're behind the 8 ball, but we can catch up. We have to educate ourselves on 1619 or 1641, when Massachusetts sanctioned slavery, the current day. And we haven't done that. And that's what I'm worried about. And we are educators, and we've been begging to educate people for the last 2 years, and it hasn't been done. And I just want to remind people that the clock is ticking. That report's supposed to be done by the end of next month. We're not ready.
Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you. Thank you. I saw one other hand over here. We have a quick response.
Right here, and then right here. Yeah, right here. No, this gentleman right here is first. And then the young woman.
Yeah. My name is Kazi Toure. I'm former political prisoner. Make the conspiring overthrow this government. I think it needs to be overthrown. But I work with organization Jericho, and we do work around amnesty for political prisoners who's locked up, right, fighting against them, the same things that we're talking about here today. But I think, there's a couple of things. One is there's a group of people that we don't want to be part of this country. There's a group of us, we recognize, we follow what Malcolm said, as far as if you can't call yourself American, African American, unless you got equal rights that all Americans have. And it's been 160 years since Lincoln signed that emancipation paper, right? And we still don't have equality here. So I don't understand why our people still want to be a part of this. We haven't got equality now after 160 years. What makes you think we ever going to get it here? No, we separate. Here, when we work this land, we got a relationship with it just like Native Americans. We worked the Black Belt South for 200 years. We have a relationship with the land. We don't have to go nowhere. We just need our money and to separate so we can develop our own state, our own new African state. Because we came here from many different tribes and nations and made up a new African nation within this colony.
Thank you.
All right?
I'm just gonna
One other thing, on all these commissions, right, I don't see people from the bottom. And it seems to be put together with people from the church, it's okay, people from other institutions, but not from the bottom. The prisoners, the people who's on the bottom, never have a voice here.
Thank you.
We put together the same way it's always been.
So, thank you so much for your comment. I just want to quickly jump in so that we can get back on track with regards to the fact that we're asking that the questions relate to the question that was asked. We're going to leave time for.
Good questions.
Excuse me?
You're not asking the right questions.
Well, we have a program. So the way that this is set up is, if anybody has a question as it relates to the questions that are being asked of the panelists, because those are the questions that they're answering, please ask those questions, and we will reserve time at the end for people to share their comments and their statements. So again, we are mindful of that. We want to give people the opportunity, but we also want to be able to have enough time to get through the program. So let's make sure that we're asking the questions as it relates to the questions, because we have 6 more questions and we have 4 panelists that we have to get through. 2 minutes, we're asking for people, and I'm timing. So I will jump in respectfully. Thank you.
Amen.
If the third question relates to the initial question, we'll take your question. Otherwise, you'll be first on the statements. Thank you.
We thank you guys so much for your patience. We understand that this is a very involved and intense conversation and topic, but we're all here on the same team to address what we can. So here's the second question for the panel. What is your view on the significance of religion in the African American experience in the United States?
I ain't scared. Amen. So considering the significance of religion or faith and the African American experience in the United States, I speak from the perspective of Christian. I know that there are many different faiths. But at the heart of the African American experience in the United States, our history here shows a Black folks who looked at the God who liberated the Hebrew people, saw a God who could deliver them from enslavement on the stolen land. They saw a scripture, the God who delivered Daniel and the lion's den, and believed that the same God could deliver them from the den of Jim Crow's brutality. They saw that that the scripture that says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, because I'm your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." They faced the terrors of white supremacy. They overcame brutality, and they remained humane in the face of barbaric treatment. I don't think we really consider what it takes for people to experience brutality and still yet keep their humanity intact. That is something that is brilliant to us, that we have never considered treating other people in the manner in which we have been treated. And somehow they did not lose hope. But their faith and their labor, their bloodshed and death brought about freedoms that all people benefited, by the way. So I want to think about some of the things that this country has benefited from and other people have gained when we think about affirmative action, which we know benefited predominantly white women. We know that the Fair Housing Act, the Civil Rights Movement, the Voting Rights Act, the Immigration and Nationality Act, Brown versus Boyd, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, free public education, and not to mention the baddest music on this side of the planet. These things come out of the history of Black people's struggle in this country. And as my sister said here, we understand that when Black people pursue freedom and liberation, we liberate everybody, right? There are so many who walk the earth in the United States that have no idea that they get to experience the fruit of a labor, of a struggle that they did not endure. And so I will say that our experience here in the United States has made the United States closer to the democracy that it has claimed to be. And I will dare to say, had it not been for the struggle of Black people who sought freedom for themselves, the United States would not nearly be a democracy. Those were words on a paper until we enacted them, took them, wrestled with them, and made them true. So I just want to say that democracy in the United States is built on the backs of Black people. And so everybody who can sing the song of freedom, and everybody who sees that torch and feels hope when they come to this country, they can know that whenever they benefit from, however they experience freedom, that there was a struggle that took place. There are people who bled for it. And there are people who made this country worth living in.
Thank you. Anybody else want to address or speak to the question?
Justin, I think that's a great question. The question you asked is, what is your view on the significance of religion for the African American experience in the United States? For one, I would say, I think about religion both as a way of being, but also as an institution. One, as an institution, it was one of the original spaces or institutions of white resistance. It was a place that we can name and call our own. But also, I think religion and spirituality is a way of being. That we think about our ancestors who were serving in the antebellum South. You know, at night they would find themselves on the brush harbors, and they would be weighing, swinging and rocking and swinging, hemming and hawing. They were moving in such a way. They were moving their bodies in such a way to say that I am free, that I have power. Reverend Minicum, he says in his book, My Grandmother's Hands, he says, hope is in our bones, right? So in other words, I believe that the collection of hope of our ancestors moving and rocking back and forth from the slave plantation, it emerged and manifested as a religion called Christianity for Black folks. Well, this type of religion, this type of Christianity, wasn't just a space of indoctrination. It was a theology of resistance. In other words, I think about the person of Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman, he was a beautiful brother, was the first dean, the first African American dean of any major white institution in the country. He's also a mentor of Dr. King and other Black civil rights leaders. And he talks about his grandmother doing radical exegesis as a former slave. In other words, he would talk about how his grandmother in the South, she would hear the servants of white masters. They would say, slaves obey your masters. And as a person who was on a slave plantation, she started doing deep exegetical work. In other words, she says, this Paul person, I don't really like him. I don't like the religion that he's espousing, but this person named Moses who was setting his people free, that's the type of religion that I want. So when we think about religion and spirituality, it's both. It's a way of being. It's been a way in which Black folks have been able to maintain our African retentions in the way that we think, and the way that we move, and the way that we approach the world. But it's also a place of building radical institutions. Many of the great 7 large Black institutions that are churches emerge from radical resistance that have been blended with our own spirituality and our African retentions. Last point I'll say is this: without religion and without Black institutions, there would be no freedom for Black folks. I want to say that one more time. Yes. Without spirituality, however you might name that, without the radical manifestation of religion into an institution, there would be no freedom for Black folks here in this country. And so I think we have to ensure that all of our ways of being in spirituality and our African retentions, however that's manifested as Black folks, that we uplift that we name that, and we honor that, because that is the vessel by which we hold and maintain our freedom.
That's right.
Thank you. I'll talk about the church that I come from. We can always assume that we're within an institution and that we go into this place every Sunday and we do worship. Well, I don't come from that part of the church. The church that I come from is totally from the bottom. That's the church that I come from. I can remember back in the 80s when I got out of the military and I looked around my community at the blight and plight. I saw burned out buildings, vacant lots. And as time went on, I joined, as you heard in my bio, which could sound like fluff. But when I go around, whether it's anywhere in the country, I usually say, don't try this at home because of the hell, not just that I went through, but that people on the bottom went through. We usually say, don't pray about a homeless person on Sunday and walk over them on Monday. I can remember taking over abandoned housing as I saw the vacant lots and buildings in my community. And I became a member of the National Union of the Homeless. And that title, Savina or Rev, is basically revolutionary, because I know that we're up against this capitalist system that could give 2 shits about us. They don't care about the people on the bottom. They're about maximizing profits at our own expense. They're about maximizing profits. And if they cannot suck us dry, they don't want anything to do with us. And that's what I saw. I was speaking at Riverside Church in 1980. I'm giving away my age and I don't even care. Yes, I'm 70 years old. I've been around these parts for a mighty long time. And I was on the podium at Riverside Church, and a New York Times reporter came to me and he said, Savina, he says, Mayor Flynn just threw your people out of the abandoned buildings in the South End. Well, when we came back home, we continued to take over abandoned buildings and we continued to get arrested. We continue to run roughshod on this community until they shut us down. And I'm saying this to say, with even our churches experience here in America, when we know that church on every single Sunday is the most segregated place in America, that they came in and they destroyed us within. So if we're going to organize and mobilize and educate on the bottom, we've got to unite in love. We've got to unite in love. And, well, look, the more we know, the more we owe, right? Right? We've got a long way to go, but I know that we're live, and some of our conversations should be private. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you for that. Sure, I can repeat the question. What is your view on the significance of religion in the African American experience in the United States? The significance of that.
So, Martin Luther King said the most segregated time in America is on a Sunday. Most segregated day is Sunday. As I do this work on reparations, I question the Black church every single Sunday. I sit and listen to a pastor tell me that I need to be more sincere. I sit in the church and get aggravated when I watch the news and see young Black men and girls being shot and killed, and no pastor response. No white ones either. I sit in the church and my body's moving from church to church, trying to figure out where I belong as a Black woman. Where my little Black grandsons, where they belong. Where are they going to be loved? When we talk about spirituality as though it's something that we all know and possess. And we do all possess it, but do we all use it? Do we all use it to love? We got a lot of work to do as Black people. We got to reconcile with ourselves. And that's a spiritual journey for each and every one of us. I went to Catholic school from 1st to 8th grade. Always lived in a white neighborhood, Mission Hill, in the 70s. One of the 2 Black families there. Always searching and looking for my spirituality and sitting in a Catholic school, watching racist nuns treat me and my friends horribly. Then going to Black churches, moving into Roxbury, and the churches were closed every day till Sunday morning. Spirituality is not just on Sunday for 4 hours. It's not a hand clap. And money for tithes, that ain't my spirituality. So when I think about the Black church and our spirituality, we all have to understand the church is within us. The church is within us. And we have to begin to act for it.
Amen.
Amen.
Challenge.
Can I respond real quick, if that's okay? I love that quote by, thank you, sister, for sharing that, because I think the wicked grandchildren of white supremacy is sexism and patriarchy. So I think we understand the Black church is not monolithic, but in many ways we have to really address that in our churches in terms of that Black women are the ones who are, opening the church, closing the church, raising most of the money, doing most of the work, but then Black men get all the glory. So I think it's important to name that. But one thing about Dr. King, amen, we clap for that. Amen, we clap for that. Amen, we clap for that. And I'm not trying to push the envelope, but quite frankly, when I think about Dr. King's quote, I'm grateful that the most sacred day of the week is Sunday. I want to worship with white folks because they would co-opt the work that we do. They would co-opt our worship. They would co-opt our ways of being. They would co-opt our theology. So it's important to name that separate is sometimes the way that we move in the world. We need our spaces to be ourselves. We need our spaces to think. We need our spaces to radically strategize about how to move out of white supremacy. Because part of the work that we have to name in terms of reconciliation as Black people, and it's okay if y'all don't agree with me because I'm not scared of y'all, so it's all good. One of the things that we have to do is to proclaim that our sacred spaces are sacred. That Black spaces are sacred, and they have to be sacred and sometimes separate so that we can be protected from the ideology of whiteness. Because again, we think about the ways in which the Black church has harmed Black women, again, because that's the white ideology that's manifested, right, through sexism and patriarchy. So I think it's important to name that as a people. It's okay to affirm your Black spaces. It's okay to affirm spaces that are called to radical diversity, that are called to racial reconciliation. And there's also important to name that there are spaces we have to have our own space, worship the way we want to worship, dance the way that we want to dance, and proclaim the theology that we want to proclaim. I think that's important for us.
What a riveting conversation is happening up here on the panel. We want to hear from you, one or two of you. Again, let me repeat the question. Your comment, your question should pertain to what we were talking about in this moment. I love us because we all want to be on the panel, right? But we have 4 panelists, and that's okay. So let them talk and give their points of view, and for us to engage with that perspective and point of view. And trust me, we have more questions coming up, and I hope to get to questions that you find are pertinent and important. But I also want to point out there are other meetings that will be talking about other things. Today we are talking about the church and reparations, faith and reparations. That is the topic for today's conversation. All right, here's the question one more time. What are your views on the significance of religion and the African American experience in the United States? We want to hear from you questions about that topic.
Okay, we're gonna go with this lady here. Okay, 1 second, I'll get over there, here, and then we have some young people in the back, and he has a comment, and we want to acknowledge our young people because we want them to get involved, and then we don't acknowledge them.
Thank you, Boston People's Reparations Commission, for having this event. I just want to comment on what you were saying about segregation, and just to make that comment that someone made segregation like it's a bad thing. When Black people get together, segregation is a bad thing. But when other ethnic groups get together, that's okay. So segregation means that Black people are getting together, and we need to get together. So I just want to, comment on what you had just said.
We definitely are an affinity group and understanding us coming together to affirm our spaces. We have to also understand that the history of segregation is forcing of people to be in different places. So, next question.
Yes, I'm just gonna read it again for you, young man. What is your view on the significance of religion in the African American experience in the United States?
So I appreciate you reiterating the question. I guess I would also appreciate some clarification. I know you guys just mentioned this. I can only speak for myself. I wasn't aware of this at first, that the topic of today's meeting was specifically about the role of faith and the church's role with the reparations conversation. Given what I both said before, I just wanted to I guess kind of have further clarification about the purpose and the topic of today's meeting, or today's commission. It was stated that that the report is due next month or something about the commission and what I'm trying to say is I'm kind of confused. Was the to use the words of Malcolm X, was the purpose of today's meeting to sing up on some freedom or to swing up on some freedom? Because when you talk about Black Boston reparations, that I feel like you want to talk about tangible things, policy change, concrete things, as opposed to, which I think this is absolutely important as well, and I really appreciate the panelists sharing their perspective. I would appreciate if they wouldn't be on their phones though, like while I'm asking the question. I do appreciate the perspective that they're sharing. However, I guess are we supposed to be kind of just talking about the church and more of like a feelings type of based meeting, or is the purpose like to get things done? I can only speak for myself.
You speak for me too.
Thank you. I wasn't clear coming in on the purpose of it. I thought there was gonna be some more concrete, tangible things talked about. But so I would appreciate clarification on that. So thank you.
I really appreciate that question. I was just informed by the people who were coordinating who's been coordinating this meeting. I can only let them speak for it. But this is, as I understand, the 13th meeting like this. Many of them have had various topics and focus. This particular one, as I understand it, is about faith and reparations. The other 13 hopefully could address something else, and perhaps there's some more coming after this as well. So keep coming back. That's all I can say. Yes, the question up front.
Oh, okay. Excuse me, I had dialysis yesterday. But to try to ask my question as succinctly as possible, in terms of the question that you've asked. I grew up in a Baptist church. I'm about 45 in a couple of weeks, or a week and a half. And what I've known that the church has not done, in terms that they could have done, as far as this reparations conversation has gone, is to prepare us as Black people that have grown up in the church the way that other ethnicities have prepared their children. Now, to your point, Pastor, that it's fine to be separated. Yeah, it is fine, and it is good that we worship the way that we do. But those other churches, as we do know, open their doors and continue to allow their members to forward them into industries, corporations, and other places where economics and them getting the money, the bag, in order to bring to the church. They don't have a building fund every month. They prepare their members in order, because if you prepare your members, then your building fund is null and void because it's already built. And the next one will be built. And the next one will be built because it's been spilled. Not by putting money into the basket every month, but because you're willingly doing it because they have prepared them for the life and they know for being and giving to their community, which is something that the Black communities churches have not done.
Thank you for your comments.
All of it.
Does anybody like to respond to that? Gary, Tim?
You see your name real quick, brother? You see your name real quick, brother? What's your name, brother?
Curtis Rollins.
Thank you very much, Brother Curtis Rollins. I appreciate you.
Okay, we have someone here, and in the interest of time, I'm going to try to keep it moving, and if someone wants to comment, it'd be first on the next question. So thank you, please.
Thank you very much. It's the daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter of Baptist pastors. We know that it was through the church that the colleges and primary and secondary schools for Blacks in the South were built. Mather School, Benedict College, I could go on. South Carolina State College, Spelman College. So when I hear the question about the church, it is how are we as people of faith, going to teach those who don't know what has happened to us? How are we going to teach them? Because it's important that we not only teach our own children, but we teach other adults who think that, well, that was back in the 1800s. And, it's all over with, doesn't have anything to do with me. They don't understand the legacies of enslavement.
Thank you so much, and I'm gonna hand it back to Devlin. Thank you for your comments. We're doing good. We're back on track. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments. It matters a great deal to add to the conversation in the way that we have it. And we understand that there is history and an iceberg of stuff that is a part of having these conversations. Here's another question for the panel. And for the sake of time, panelists, we're going to have you jump in on the questions that you feel most passionate to respond to, because we're not going to have each of you respond to each one. We're going to try to balance it a little bit more for the sake of time. And we want to remind everybody, we do have a 2-minute idealistic limit in our responses, as we all do our best for this community conversation. Yes, ma'am.
I think there are some people who may have disabilities, so it may take a little bit longer to be able to get out their point.
100% understood. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Here's the next question. The question is, how do you see repair in a nation that was founded on, quote unquote, one nation under God?
Ooh.
None of us get out of here. One nation under God. When we were dragged and beaten and had this so-called Christian religion beaten into us, a taking and like there's some other words I want to use, but I'm trying not to use those words, because sometimes we need to tell the truth. And I just want to say right now, not bouncing it all over, but the white churches, y'all ain't getting away with this. And I'm saying this, I'm not going to keep justifying myself, but the time for sitting around watching us go through our pain is over. This is painful, but we shall overcome it, because we have to have these kinds of conversations and these steps that, there was a brother that was sitting right there. Where'd he go? I wish he didn't go. Sometimes you have to step out and take a breath, because this is hard. We're taking the steps that we need to take so that we're being accountable, right? We're having these community engagements. Education and advocacy is a must. It's being raised. We're talking about interfaith collaborations. Everybody is included here. Everybody in and nobody out. So we have to have these conversations. I bet you if I was sitting on the other side, I'd be so anxious and antsy saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? I know that. But we have to have these, respectively, have these conversations. Right? But one nation under God. But who's God? Who's God? The God that I prayed to and prayed for? I believe in spirituality, right? Those that are afraid to go to hell are usually spiritual people. Because there's been some of us, and all of us here, that have already gone through a hell. We know what that is. So one nation under God, if we could just reimagine as a people, and we've had to be very creative. And Sister has mentioned in song and music and gospel and congregating and fighting back with our little Malcolms and our many Martins and Ellas and folks that have come through, our communities and have taught us how to fight. Gloria Fox was one of my mentors. As a matter of fact, she's the one, without going off, I hear you saying Gloria Fox, she was the one that submitted my name to be recognized in 1988 for the Drum Major Award at St. Cyprian's Church that was held at the Hotel Marriott. So yes, Gloria Fox. One nation under God. If we could just reimagine how we want to move forward, our legacy here, to leave the inheritance to our generations that are yet to come and that are rising and growing in these yet United States and in Boston, Massachusetts. What will be our legacy? One nation under God. Because right now, I do not have that answer due to the atrocities, the harm and the danger and the hurt that we've been through. Yes, it's still going through. One nation under God. You talk about militarism, the war economy, the trickle-down effect of taking 15 cents of every federal dollar and putting it into these poverty programs where our kids can't be uplifted. The systemic poverty and racism where young black women and women of color and poor whites that they try to divide us from are trying to maintain their housing infrastructure and can't and find their kids taken away from them. You talk about substance abuse. When you hurt yourself or cut yourself, you don't go to jail, you go to treatment. But they continue to try to arrest their way out of our pain and sorrow and poverty. Come on now, we got to tell the truth. And I'm hoping that the white churches can have their panel day very soon. Very soon. Everybody in and nobody out. What is one nation under God?
Thank you for that, Minister.
I'll be very brief in my comments. Frank Wolderson, he has a great book called Afro-Pessimism. And the premise of the book basically is this, is that the world would cease to exist if we got rid of anti-Black racism. In other words, there's whole economies, whole countries, whole ways of being that have been built off of the backs and the labor of Black people. And so I think part of the work that we have to do around repairing the world through the values of a higher creator is we have to literally remake the world. We literally have to remake the world because the world that we've created is a world that says that we have to contort our bodies to fit into white boxes. That we literally, even in this moment, are policing Black bodies and what they're doing, right? Because the way that we see the world. And so I think for me, I can't answer the question, but I will say we have to begin to my sister's point, begin to reimagine what the world could be and what the world should be. And it cannot come through the prestige of white Ivy League institutions. It cannot come from white democratic policies or practices. It has to literally come from the essence and the beauty and the brilliance of Black people.
turn it over to some questions from you now regarding this particular question. How do we see repair in a nation that is founded on, quote unquote, one nation under God? Handed it over to Davis on the audience.
We're gonna go here and here. Okay, he says we can go here first. Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Kelly, and I sit here and I hear what you all are saying. Everything is fine. To begin, we need to take back as reparations the communities that have been redlining taken away from us. How do we do that? I think the young man has a very good idea. Dorchester, when I came to America in 1966, when I looked at Roxbury, there was all black people. Mattapan and all the areas around here. What we need to do for the reparation is take back the cities that have been taken from us. And then the $15 billion would be the reconstruction of the cities. Because right now, our children have no job. There is a place in here called People's Academy that's supposed to be working with the coming out prisoners coming back to society, and they have not been able to fund that 15 years. What are we doing? We are merely talking and talking, but there is no concrete fruit. And the fruit has to begin by us uniting with the white church, because they have the funds, we have the anointing. Hello, somebody. Hello, somebody. Hello, somebody. So we have to appeal to them to unite with us to get this done. Amen. We have to do that. Take back Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan to the redlining and the $15 million required for the restoration of the city. God said in His Word that we were going to live in houses that was not built for us. So we need to make that reality in this season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we ask that everybody, just a reminder that we want to keep the questions to 2 minutes and on topic. Again, we're going to make time for everybody to share their comments, but we're not going to meet that threshold if we don't stay on topic. The other quick piece I just wanted to point out is for the new people in the room who've never been to our previous 13 meetings or other events, please be patient with us. Please take a moment and look us up, bostonpeoplesreparation.org. We have been having meetings for a very long time, so if the topic seems off for you, believe me, Boston People's Reparations Commission is a grassroots platform for the community. The community is involved in the topics that we choose each month, and so if you'd like to be part of that conversation, to be part of the narrative, we encourage you to get involved because we accept everyone to become a commissioner. So again, there's an opportunity for everybody to be involved. So please don't be frustrated. Get involved, okay?
Okay, this gentleman was next, and then we're gonna go up front and go to the next question. And please keep be mindful of the time. How do you see repair in a nation that was founded on one nation under God? There were some comments and statements from our panelists.
That's the main thing as far as when they were talking about spirituality, as far as we brought our spirituality from Africa over here, whereas Christianity was we blended into as far as so we know that basically Christianity was the racism that we had to fight against with our African spirituality. We blended all, it's like our sister Danielle was saying, spirituality. You're talking
talking about generations which were denied from day one. And we're fighting for our grandchildren's grandchildren, and also we're fighting for our ancestors, our past ancestors. So it's a continuous battle, but one nation under God, because who's God, whose religion, whose value. Like I said, Boston Tech 19. Here you go.
Thank you. I want to thank Kevin Peterson and the Boston People's Reparations for having this in a series of meetings. This is not the first one I've been to. This is the first one I've spoken at. My name is Sharon Hinton. I am the Executive Director of Black Teachers Matter. I'm an educator for 45 years. My father was murdered when I was 13 years old, a Black revolutionary, an activist in the city of Boston. And I hear what everybody's saying. And I originally was in the Nation of Islam with my father. I'm now a Christian. Saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost. I'm baptized, hopefully. So let's make this, Jesus was Black. God doesn't have spirit and truth, there's no color of the spirit. But Jesus, his skin was bronze, his hair was like wool. That was not a white boy. Absolutely. When I walk into Black churches and I see white Jesus up there, I know that that was a social construct of racism to oppressive people to let them think or make them think that they were born into slavery because that was God's plan. It's a lie straight from the pit of hell. I met Kwame Ture in DC and I asked him, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, what do Black people need? He said, we need to be organized. You can't organize the people without education. Malcolm said, only a fool will allow his enemy to educate his children. I'm a teacher. If you want to know about what the reparations plan should look like, Dr. Claude Anderson has a trilogy of books, Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America. That theory was devised in the late 90s. He wrote the book and published it in 2001. This is 2024. There's been a 23-year-old plan to bring Black people out of poverty and empower us within 5 years. Come on. Orange man ain't got nothing to do with us. We didn't survive everything else. We ain't going to. Finally, I'm a child of the 60s. I was born in 55. Same year Emmett Till was killed. Same year Brown versus Board of Education. My father was one of the architects of Operation Exodus, which along with Fruit Batson and Ellen Jackson, which became MECO. This is my life. Black people. The reason why we made as much progress as we did during the 60s, let me be clear, all of the people, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Denmark Vesey, all of them started in the church because legally that's the only place we could congregate. All of the Black people that came from Africa were not Christians. However, the concept of one God did originate in Egypt. Let's be clear. We got to know where we came from, know where we are, and then know where we're going. This conversation is a necessary conversation, but we got to stay focused. It's going to take all of us. Black, white, gay, straight, Asian, poor, rich, homeless. It's going to take everybody. And that's how we did it before. What we did is we allowed ourselves to be divided, and the divided house cannot stand. See, I'm going to put some Bible up in here too. But relationally, this is what we always did. We didn't care if Bayard Rustin was gay. He was one of the architects of the March on Washington. We didn't care if Harriet Tubman was a woman. She was going to be free. I'm Harriet. I was going to be free. You can stay on the plantation if you want to, get nothing to support. It ain't going to be me. You can come and be free. But if you think you're going to come in the swamp and try to turn us out, we're going to have to kill you. Some of y'all got to go. Now, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America, please, from this meeting on, read the book, and don't come here and say, what are we going to do at this point? He literally breaks down the plan in terms of all the levels of government, religion, and everything that needs to be changed, and education that needs to be changed. And Sister Antonia, if we don't get this right now, one of the major transfers of wealth happened during the pandemic. This country found out a way, to get everybody paid, keep everybody home. Don't listen to that, they can't pay us, they don't have the money. We're spending 85 trillion in other countries. I'm not Ukrainian, I'm not Jewish, but this country every single year spends millions and billions of dollars to buy weapons, but won't feed its people. We cannot be divided. And the church is the basis of it, the mosque is the basis of it, people that used to be in the church are the basis of it. We cannot let this divide us. We have to do this if you're talking about total liberation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for pulling us back together. Really appreciate that. Guys, this has been incredible, insightful, and full conversation. Because of it, we had 4 more questions, but we only have time for 1 more, which is going to be a question for the panel, and then we're going to give you time, because we want to give you time. So we're trying to make up some time to do just that, give you guys time to interact. This question, the final question for our panel. How do you think the efforts towards reparations is going to be approached and acknowledged in a Trump 2.0 4-year era that we are about to enter? Quick answers are welcome at this point, but would love to hear from you, panel.
I think it's going to have to be underground. It really is. I've been thinking about it for the past, feels like a year, because I've been just in complete mourning, thinking about the hope that could have come for many Americans if things hadn't turned out. But I definitely feel like when we talk about America and under one God, I think about it from this perspective, in terms of what's next under a Trump administration. What's next under a Trump administration? If it is, actually it is. And I was thinking about the 3 trumpets in Revelations. And this is the second sound of Trump. And when we think about what does reparations look like, it's definitely going to be us, each and every one of us, sitting and organizing, thinking of policy that can change people's lives, because 2025, Project 2025 is nothing but policy.
We have our own plan, though. We don't have to worry about.
We've got to have our own plan. It's interesting, they never had money for reparations for Black people. But now Project 2025, they're talking about reparations for white people. They never had it for us for over 400 years, because we got stuck in, I believe, the 40 acres and a mule. And it was policy that was killing us. And it's policy that's still killing us, because we get hung up on the money. It's good to fight for the money. It's good to fight for the money, but the money also is with policy that oppresses us every day. When I do work around mass incarceration, and I see young men and women that are being penalized after they come out of prison, penalized after they get out of prison with no pathways for housing, no pathways for employment.
That's our fault.
That's
our fault.
Honey, that is policy. It's policy that we can organize and change. Yes, I agree with you, it is our fault. Because
$80 million, you can raise $80 million for Kamala, that you could raise money for those Black people coming in this community.
So let's start it.
Absolutely.
Let's sit down and figure out, because this is how we are going to this is how we're going to be able to change things. It's us getting together. It's people with minds like yours.
And yours.
know about mine sometimes. But this is, to me, the next phase of reparations is going to be us working together. And I mean, we've got to really come together. We've got the white churches that are saying, hey, we've got artifacts that are worth money. We want to be able to take those artifacts and do something that's not just symbolic in terms of reparations, but also hopefully not just give money, but help change policy.
Yes. Especially judicial. All of it.
If you got a guy that ran for, you have a white privileged man that could run for president of the United States with 37 or 34 felons, then black men and women that need jobs to thrive in our communities, to build their families, can get the same thing too. We need to open the doors for them. We talk about freeing the captives in scripture. This is about freeing the captives. And he gets free housing too. How many people here? How many people here that have tried to get a Section 8 and have a criminal background, can't even get a job? I can't even get housing. Policy. Policy. We gotta work together to change this policy. If there's anything I've learned with the crazy MAGAs, hey, they got a point here. They got a point. They're freeing their captives. We need to free ours too. All
right. To Anthony's point too, well, the people perish without a lack of knowledge. So to my point, not to focus on Trump, but our own 2.0, we got to keep a good eye on him, but we know he's about chaos, right? But in the next 4 years, we can focus on our own accountability in terms of economic and social advocacy education, right? Mobilizing and organizing the young people, giving them the information that we didn't have. I know there's a lot of educators here, building coalitions, and on and on. We don't have to give it all away, but here on live, but we can get together and have a working group and continue to get together and have working groups and making sure that we hit every single block in the span of, or deep dive canvassing, right? If we can vote people out, we're a swing vote here. There's 7-point-something million people in this small state of Massachusetts and 22 billionaires. They're crafts. Yes, we could go on and name them, right? Just the other day in the newspaper, it said Massachusetts booming economy. But we start there. We start there dismantling these unjust laws and these unjust policies and pull together these coalitions of folks in the community that are on the bottom that are working in the areas of mass incarceration, homelessness, addiction, housing, Section 8, and on and on and on. We know all these interlocking injustices. We live them every day. But I say we prepare to educate, because if we don't, we're going to plan to fail again. So we'll take these 4 years to be, we'll put ourselves through a organizing curriculum in the school of our own, right? School of struggle. I'm gonna pass it on to my sister Valerie. The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house.
Yes.
But I think what we have to hold on to, and I want to encourage us, because we have done everything that people say we should do. We've done. We've built economies. We've created schools. We've organized. We've cared for one another. We've struggled together. This is not new to us. This is something we gotta have a Sankofa moment. We gotta go back to get what we need so we can move forward. This is not new to us. Okay, so let's not act like we don't know what this is. We know what this is. And Trump, I mean, I'm gonna be real honest, I hope it's only 4 years.
No more.
Because the issue is Trump, it's not even Trump, it's the movement behind Trump. You take one person out, it don't stop a movement. White supremacy always has a figurehead. So what we have to understand is what is behind Trump is the manifestation of the underbelly of what it means to be part of the empire called the United States of America. Woo. And so what we need to do is what we have done. Go back and build. We have educated ourselves. When we were not allowed to be a part of other people's stuff, we built our own. Right? And so when we talk about using the master's tools to dismantle the master's house, I think in the 1970s there was a compromise made. The Black power structure was co-opted. And we were invited in with the promise of being able to work our way up the corporate ladder. And Black women, we turned in and exchanged our beautiful Afro crowns for pressed and relaxed hair. To say, oh, we're ready to be a part of the system. You cannot, this theory of changing things from the inside, we've been on the inside. It's just as rotten in there as it is on the outside. So what we have to understand is that the empire will not give you the tools to destroy the empire. And we people have to understand, people of deep melanated complexion, that every single program that they give us, DEI, affirmative action, they can take it away. So what we need to do is understand, because there's one thing I'm going to point out to you before I turn the mic over to my brother here, is think about where we were 4 years ago. George Floyd was murdered, and honey, baby, millions of us was out in the street. We had allies of every color and complexion. Where they at now?
They were allies, not co-conspirators.
Right, so the point I'm making is, 4 years ago, people were talking about a revolution, allyship. Today they talk about anti-DEI, anti-woke, anti-anything Black. That's how quick it can flip on you. So the problem is we cannot get complacent in the master's house. We have to understand that there's always the possibility that people try to put us back on the plantation. And so how do we always be prepared to resist what has existed from the beginning, the structure of white supremacy, which is designed to destroy us. It's not a friend, right? And so I just want to say, we can do this. We've done it before.
Again, it's been a blessing and a privilege and honor to be with you all today. I would simply share two things that are important. One, to get through these next 4 years, you just have to keep being Black. James Baldwin, in a great interview in the late 1970s, they said, James, with all that's going on in the world, the anti-Black racism, Black folks getting killed in the South, how do you keep going? And James Baldwin said, hope is created every day. And so every day, love your brothers and sisters, love your boo thing, love your wife, love your children. Continue to affirm the beauty of your Blackness and your brilliance. I think the other part, I love Dr. King. He has a great quote. He says, I've seen the power of God transforming the fatigue of despair into the buoyancy of hope. I'm convinced that in the struggle for righteousness, the universe continually bends towards justice. In other words, the arc of the universe, it bends, but it bends over time. And there's a great saying that folks who are oppressed need to engage in something that they might call 7 generations thinking. And it was so beautiful to hear our dear sister begin with her ancestors, because that's where I always begin. My great-great-great-grandfather, George Shelton Moore, he was born on a plantation in Crenshaw County, Alabama. He would then have a son named Uriah Moore, who was born in the 1850s. He would then have a son, my great-grandfather, Thomas Moore, who was the first Moore born out of slavery. He would then have a son, my grandfather, who was born in 1911 in Crenshaw County, Alabama, named George Wesley Moore. Then he would have a son whose name who was born in 1952 in Youngstown, Ohio, because George Wesley Moore, he had to migrate from the South because of racial terrorism and found himself working in the steel mill in Youngstown, Ohio. And then he would have a son, George Wesley Moore, who was born in 1952. Then in 1986, the world changed. Lightning struck, and I arrived on the scene. I would then move to study at Boston University School of Theology in 2010. And then in 2021, I would marry my wife, Chanel Yasa D. Shelby. And then in 2023, on September 4th, we would have our son, Langston Atlas Ade Shelby Moore. That's 7 generations. What my great-great-great-grandfather was doing, working on a plantation in the 1830s, his strength, his resilience, his continued hope, then birthed my little son Langston, who's at home with my wife right now. So I say all that to say that we have to, in the words of Chester Jackson, we got to keep hope alive. Real talk, because some of the gains that we want to see in our own lifetime, we won't see it. But the work that we do in this moment, we're preparing the way for the descendants that will come after us. So in other words, the decisions that you make today, you're not just making it for yourself. You're making it for the self-interest of the descendants that will come after you. So keep being Black, keep hope alive, and remember the work that you do now. It should affect 7 generations down the line. God bless you.
Well, that wraps up our panel discussion. So let's thank all of our panelists one more time. Mr. Martin, Danielle Wood, and Pastor Valerie Copeland, and Reverend Harrington Moore. Thank you guys for jumping in the fire. We're now going to make some space for y'all to talk, for y'all to interact, bring up various topics. I am actually going to relieve myself and the panel for this part of it, and I'm going to pass it over to Edwin and let him lead this part of the conversation as well. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for having me.
One more time for Pastor Devlin Scott and Travis Carter. Thank you both very
Once
much.
again, that is Tavis Carter, along A. But Edwin, when we do get started, we're gonna go here. She's been very patient.
What I'll do, Davis, I'm gonna let you go ahead and go right to her now.
All
And
right.
again, this is the time for folks to make some quick pleas, because we are under the gun. So
We want to get a lot of people
in terms
in
of time,
so we don't have to
make your
wait for
comment,
the night.
please make it brief.
I just wanted to make a statement about getting the word out there about reparations. We all have youth. I'm a 48-year-old woman, so I'm not a little girl. We all have youth in our families around that are well with the internet. How about we utilize that? These young kids know how to go on social media and do just about anything. They can make everybody look like anybody. Then they can put reparations on there. We can start making a movement through that avenue. We can start doing T-shirts. I'm just trying to give some ideas as to how we're gonna just start to make it a part of everyday life. We can get the word out. We're just gonna have to go through the channels of the youth, I believe. And bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Minister Conte. Again, I just want to thank everyone for coming. I am also a commissioner. One of the things that saddens me about our situation, like Trump isn't the problem, white supremacy isn't the problem. My opinion, we are our problem. Many of us in here don't even like one another. So if we're going to talk about strategizing and organizing and coming together and building these great ideas that were shared today, it begins, and I don't care if no one likes me. Sometimes I don't even like myself. But you have to respect one another and respect each other, because we're a grassroots organization. That means we started with nothing, and we have accomplished a lot. I've been in this process with Kevin and others for 30 years. I helped peace organizations come together like Congress Square House Center under Mayor Menino, who was my mentor. I was the director for the Anthony Perkins Community Center. I helped build Boston's first truancy initiative under my friend, Commissioner Evans. I have invested my whole life as a brother from Humboldt and Crawford, who's a man in recovery, who's fought and overcome crack cocaine addiction, racism, as a state official working for the Department of Corrections just recently, where I've experienced institutional racism, but none of that, and all that stuff hurts, but you know what hurts me the most? What hurts me the most is most of the pain that I've gotten comes from people that look like me, Black people. So before we move on, I'll close with this. Before we can start building and doing a lot of great things that we've all shared today, we have to start loving and respecting one another for who we are individually and collectively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, I was.
It's two words that I haven't heard anybody saying it. And that's gun and army. We got a lot of adults in here. We should all know that reparations was obviously an infliction of damage. How are those wounds inflicted? By a gun, right? So what are we talking about here? Those little shorties right back there, little homie back there. They coming for you. They coming for all of us. You need a state of your own, just like every other people walking this planet. What makes you think that you're worthy of anything less? You need a military, an army to protect that state. Let's get real. Y'all talking about getting crumbs from the master? I think the sister brought up something about using the master's tools. I think we all know better here, but it seems, I don't know if, is anybody afraid to say that word or something? I don't know. Is that an accident? Why I didn't hear the word gun or army at all? How was the damage done that we all talking about repairing? How do you think you're going to be able to prevent them from continuing to inflict the same degree of damage, if not worse? We're talking about economic prosperity. What happened to Black Wall Street? How did that happen? We did a whole lot of singing. We did a whole lot of clapping. We wasting time. What value is faith? Somebody tell me we doing all this talking in here.
We're doing a lot of action.
So where does the action begin if not with the state? I'm telling you right now, you need a state. I need a state. We need a state. I ain't talking about a Massachusetts or an Alabama or any of that. I'm talking about there's 200 plus countries on this planet Earth where the distinct group of people, as far as an ethnic group of people, being Black people, some of us call ourselves New Africans. Everybody in here got phones. Everybody should take their phone out right now and Google the Republic of New Africa. Especially y'all back there, because they definitely coming for y'all. And they got guns. Every police out here, when y'all get pulled over by the police, why y'all pull over? Because they got a gun. Don't tell me you want to pull over. You know about John Brown? I like your speech. You know about John Brown? You need to know about John Brown. You up in here. Our sister right there, she got the confetti on, right behind you. You know what they're doing right now in Gaza? You know what they're doing right now? They're going through 70% of everybody being genocided there are women and children. We've been doing this how long?
When we gonna get it that we need a state?
Our children are being murdered right here.
But how?
What about, we have more deaths in Ukraine.
One at a time,
The
please.
murder's been happening here since 1980. Our children be slaughtered in the street every week.
Now that's cool too.
About Ukraine.
That's cool too. But what we gotta get away from is this right here. This is another version of us just pointing the finger and saying they. I heard the word they a whole lot here tonight as well. We're talking about they. Everybody pointing the finger. When you gonna take responsibility? We got men sitting in here. Y'all gonna let police come and kick in your door and take what's yours and violate your families? Or you gonna organize yourself into a military force capable of defending yourselves? It don't matter what they wanna do. What you gonna allow them to do? How strong are you? Why we gonna worry about getting strong instead of worrying about how strong Trump is and how strong the United States is? That's a part of military strategy. Let's get serious. Let's start making these meetings about this. So everybody that come in, this is what we're gonna be dealing with. What are we gonna do? We got 4 options. Separation, assimilation, repatriation, or migration.
We got incorporation. We already separated.
You can migrate to a friendly country if you think that that's the best way for you. You can repatriate back to your country of origin if you think that that's the best way for you. You can assimilate into the United States of America and try to get in as a second-class citizen and a 21st century slave if you think that that's what's best for you. Or you can follow Malcolm and you can separate. And you can understand that you're gonna have to fight and you're gonna have to bleed for your land, just like every people that's walking this planet.
Thank you.
We are down to our final 5 minutes. Thank you. Dr. Godson, are you here?
Hello. I just want to acknowledge your statement. I want to thank you for your courage first. Wait, let me just finish. I want to recognize and appreciate your courage for speaking out because the things that are happening, they're causing a lot of harm. I have a son, I have nephews, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a care and a concern. But in order for us to get to a space where we can start to repair and heal and protect our people, we have to mobilize. And before we can get to the mobilization, we have to do the education. And before we get to the education, we have to engage. And so we need voices like yours, maybe kind of modified so people can digest it. But you have to understand that. But okay. So right, but gotta move forward. But what I'm saying is we have a platform and everybody is invited to the table.
I just want to say one more thing real quick. Bill Owens is my uncle. To anybody in here that knows Bill Owens, Bill Owens is my uncle. So we need to continue on that legacy in this new generation, right? And the only way, absolutely, and the only way for us to be able to do that, sister, to be able to develop educationally and medically and everything else.
Excuse me. Thank you. My name is Dr. Arlene Campbell. And the only reason why I'm using the whole name, because it was 1981, when the homicide rate was way beyond our recognition. And I want to say this. First thing we need to do, just one, if we could just do this, we could start off. We need to learn and teach everyone how to say reparations. There's too many of us don't even know how to pronounce the word. That's all I want to say. Because more people, Brother Peterson, I thank you because you came up to a black town hall meeting in 2010 in Fall River. I was bold enough to have a black town meeting in the Portuguese city. And I'll tell you one thing. I got all my scruples because the United Snakes of America bought us, sold us, stole us. And now it's time for us to do something. Young people, please, whatever you do, hold on because we're going to need you in a few minutes. Did y'all hear what I said? We're going to need you in a few minutes. So I just want to let you.
Thank you.
You don't need them. You vote for abortion. That's right.
Ma'am,
You're
can I just
killing
finish?
our black
Just,
You're voting for
everybody,
abortion.
please, everybody.
You're not for the youth.
What are you talking about?
You're not for those descendants.
Young people,
Excuse me, one at a time. Excuse me, one at a time. Excuse me, we want to respect everybody in the room.
You're a baby killers. You're voting for Kamala. You're voting for abortion. You don't give a damn about the youth. If being shot down in the street, you don't give a damn.
I'd like to bring everyone to,
I told you. Don't be a damn free shit.
Hold on, we're asking everybody not to leave because we have one more speaker and then a premiere of the movie.
We're gonna tell the truth around here. That's right.
I'd like to can I bring everyone's attention back up here to the podium? Those of you who are still here, can I bring your attention to the podium?
I'm not going to sit here talk about the youth. You care about the youth when you're for abortion, the mass abortion of black babies. And you won't bring nobody who have children a bag of Pampers. Yeah, I gotta scream, but you need to know. You need to know. You don't care about these kids. They're being shot in the street. You're talking about Ukraine. You're talking about Israel. What about the boys or our male children shot in these streets?
All right, so I'm the last person to speak for the evening. It's good to see everyone out today. And I'm going to leave us on something we can all be united about. We like money. We want to.
Every week they're being shot and killed. You want to go? He said he want an army. Oh, you want an army?
Everybody please be patient. This is an example of the trauma. So we just want to allow a moment for her to leave the room. She can get her food.
You want an army? You want a motherfucking army? You're right. You want an army? Go outside. Stop this. Stop this killing of our kids. Ain't nothing more important than our kids. Ain't calling the police.
No, I'm not.
Don't get the
No, I'm not.
police.
No, I'm not. But you're gonna have to
Don't you sit up here and act like you give a damn about anything. When I used to be a shot, every fucking week, you act like it's a normal thing. It's not normal. Not normal. That's right. It's not normal. No, you better have this. You have this. You're doing this. You're going overseas to murder people. You can watch it every day.
Okay, we're back.
I'm going to be super brief. I'm Charles Gregson. I do financial advising and planning. $4.7 trillion.
Can we have everybody's attention, please?
$4.7 trillion as of 2021. That's the collective wealth of Black people in this country. So we can start by saving ourselves. I can help you find money within your own budget now. All the things we want to do, we're gonna get the reparations, but we're gonna save ourselves and start with ourselves. And I'm here to help. Just come see me. We can exchange contact information. We'll set up some time to talk.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Janice McMahon with my statement for today. So when you cut me off, I'll say this next time. Anyway, I'm an educator and I've done different studies. So I just want to share some thoughts for today. In terms of this country, the enslaved and the enslaved had different Bibles. Some of you may or may not know that. The majority of the current religions that we follow today were started in this country between the 1820s and the 1850s. Did they know that the enslaved people would be unslaved one day? A lot of the insurrections within this country were based on what people heard about stories in the Bible and freedom. My family is from South Carolina, so before there were a lot of centralized churches, there were what they call praise houses, where people were in charge of their spirituality and their religion. My great grandfather, which I was told, because of the system, buried people on Sundays. So he was working all week, and they would hope that he was available then. Also, in this country in the last century, church services were not what they were today. Down south, they might have gone once a month. It wasn't this regular participation. But the church was a center of action and activity. After slavery, those who had money bought land down south because it was very cheap, and some of them established their own schools. We were forced to give up our schools and our leadership because of the Brown versus Board of Education decision. Black teachers lost their jobs, schools were closed, and we bore the brunt of an institution that has not been corrected. Most of the decisions from the Brown versus Board of Education was anecdotal. It was from the Clark study of the doll study by Dr. Mamie Clark, her husband, and the Brown family. I think some churches, well, the church I grew up in, did discuss money, and most churches don't discuss anything about wealth with their parishioners, and that needs to change. I am in the contrary as why churches don't support home ownership for their parishioners. And I think that's something that needs to happen. Our churches need to be 7 days a week institutions, not just a Sunday institution. What are we missing? Oh, something else. Anyway, for those who are interested, we talked about divinity schools. The Harvard Divinity School has an exhibit of their staff and faculty that had enslaved persons. So I'm gonna go and see that one day if anybody wants to go. Because institutions reinvent themselves, there was Jim Crow Jr., and now there's the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. So if the system doesn't change, it reinvents itself. And I'm also reminded what Dick Gregory said a while ago. I don't remember. He said we should boycott Christmas, so we can get some things because we're always spending our own money.
Okay, thank you very much. For those of you who are still here, I just want your attention for something very important. You'll be hearing about it a lot in the next coming months, especially early 2025. As you all know, in April, the Boston People's Reparation Commission held a very important event at the Bruce Bowling Building in Roxbury. We called it the Assignment. We had hundreds of people join us that afternoon and take to the microphone and talk about reparations, their experience as a Bostonian living in Black Boston, the trials and tribulations of what we've gone through. We had that entire event filmed. That event was then cultivated, put together in terms of a documentary. That documentary is actually being made into a film that's going to be shown hopefully all over the world. Just a month ago, they released the trailer to this movie. You all who are here now are about to see I won't say made in Hollywood, made in Hollywood, if you will, but a made trailer for an upcoming full feature film on The Assignment. We're gonna run it right now, and hopefully you'll get to see more of it. But you all who are here are gonna see it. Harrison, run with it, and take a look at and listen to this. You may see some familiar faces.
Which means is that either black people will make decisions about themselves. Reparation is important because they answer critical questions around justice for black people. Too long, justice has been denied. Reparation provides an opportunity for us to get to the heart of the matter. Which means is that either black people will make decisions about themselves or somebody else is going to make decisions for them. In other words, if there's no justice, there will be no peace. So how are we going to do this? This is my information.
Change. They only tell you about the news that they want you to hear, but they don't want you to hear about the reality of what's going on.
Today's events at this hearing were like a powder keg exploding in the city. So much pent-up energy within the black community to the extent that there was an explosion.
I'm not here to argue with you. So all of you. I know I said it on and I have no forums going and I'm not here to speak for something in my heart. You know what? Speak in your heart. And I hope we speak to it. I would like to just say the conversation about reparations. The time has come for our women to confront the legacy of slavery, which established was one of everybody wants to feel that I am the legacy of Senator.
Let me tell you something now. The nation is on fire around reparations. Cities across the country are paying particular focus on the reparations in this post-George Floyd era. Bill is to check needs to be issued.
So there you have it. That's right. A movie about us, for us, and by us, our beloved community. That was a historical day in April of 2024, this past April. It was the first time in this city's history. In fact, you're hard pressed to really find what we did in April duplicated anywhere else in the country. We had a day of reparation where folks got to, a day of a topic of reparation where folks got to get up to a microphone and go up unscripted, go up there with their clear minds of how they felt about what it was like living in the city of Boston and why reparations are something that we all can agree needs to be more than just examined. They need to happen. I just want to say this on the top of all that. Kevin Peterson and the New Democracy Coalition and the Boston People's Reparations Commission, they forged a way for a lot of things that have gone on in this city. To put things like Faneuil Hall out front, the name change, the apology, all of this, why we're here today. And as I mentioned earlier when we started, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. So, but it's not really happy birthday to us, at the Boston People's Reparations Commission. The celebration belongs to the community, to you all. Because there is no way we could do these events if you all didn't come out, irregardless of the weather, irregardless of the location. You come out in big numbers, and you did it again today. So we thank you all, and you stick to it. And no matter how these meetings turn out, I can speak for Kevin and Heather and everybody associated with the Boston People's Reparations Commission. Our #1 goal was to keep the community engaged. And no matter how we do it, no matter how it comes across, no one can say we're not engaged. We are engaged. And for that, we take so much pride in. So thank you all very much for sticking through this entire event. We'll see you next time.
We thank you. One more announcement, please. Please report.
Make an announcement. Charles, make an announcement.
Can I make a quick announcement?
Charles, make an announcement.
Okay. I can't ask my question, so just let me know. You all hear me speak a lot about what happened to my daughter in the Boston Public Schools. I snatched my children out of BPS. And because they don't get to see other children, and because they don't get to play sports, we have to give up my career too.
I decided to have a holiday party. These flyers were, when everyone sees, flyers collected them, but anybody who wants one to donate, because I have to get sponsors and, donations. In order to have the party, my goal was to raise enough money for 50 to 100 kids. It's gonna be at a community center, and so I'm just asking people, especially the, faith leaders, who say they have a role in the community. These things are not monetary, so to speak. So coming together, you guys are more than welcome. Because when we were at the Arlington Street Church, I spoke that day about what happened with my daughter. And that was my question today. Like, how come when I stood there and spoke, I was in tears and everything? I have not heard from not one of the leaders here. So if we're here talking about the roles in the community, how come I didn't hear? And most of these people that were there were women, just like me, who probably have children. I didn't hear from not one person in the room full of people. Thank you. I will be having it at the community center on Talbot Ave, the Perkins Center. I have a flyer here, again, for anybody that wants to. There's a QR code, and you just scan the QR code here, and that's how you make the donation.
We need to save our librarian, Roxbury Library, in danger of you losing Mr. Knight. So we need for people to step up and decide to save the job of a black man who's doing a lot in the community. Mr. Knight is a librarian at Roxbury Library. Alan. So that's, I did make a presentation at the Board of Library Commissioners. So that's one fight we can do right now and maybe win.
Everybody, see you later. I just apologize. Why? See, oh, you don't touch me. You touched me and you didn't understand what was going on. And when I did, I apologized quickly, but instead, you were ready to jump on me. You were ready to jump on me. And where are your people from? Where are your people from? I heard you talking about black people don't like you. Where are your people from? I would like the cops to come here because this man assaulted me. Talking about I need to leave now. Yeah, you did touch me and oh, now, but that apology is sufficient. That apology is sufficient. But when I started to get emotional and was ready to apologize, you're ready to jump on me, right? Right. I'm a better man than you. I apologize. I apologize.
He just heard what happened when he heard him swear.
he didn't understand, he thought he was swearing past her. He was swearing because he was getting emotional about something he was explaining to her. So what he said was, please don't swear in my jeans. And then he went off to don't touch me. Serena said, I heard, he said swear. Yeah, but that's okay, but you know, right, but he's.
Ladies, thank you so much.
You can be very
Hello. You know what? Because can I finish? I was talking. You're interrupting. I came over here.
Hello. This belongs to somebody.
I apologize.
I'll see.
This one's plugged in the wall.
Well, you can hold it until somebody
Yeah,
calls
somebody.
So, I see.
Yes.
That's actually nice. Your opinion, I received that. I don't have to agree with you. He was a mentor. That's my own personal feeling. And I said that. Okay.
No, I'm just
You don't need to agree
people
with
saying
me.
it's like
I don't care.
Well,
I don't need to talk to you. But you are.
No, because you're attacking right
I'm
now. I'm just giving you
You
some
just
feedback. No, I gave you a reflection on what you said.
Well, thank you for sharing.
You're a minister.
Yes, I am, and so I am. Now you're judging, and you're carrying on something that has nothing to do with you. Excuse me, I'm not trying to fight with you. I'm trying to come over here and speak to my colleague, and you got involved, and I'm not going to be silent if you don't like what I said.
Well, you obviously have hostility.
No, I don't. I don't.
Well, you said it there. You said the only people you're problem with.
I said what I said. You know, I've heard you speak behind the. I've heard you speak, and when you were speaking at one of our forums, I never interrupted you. I never disagreed with you. So I deserve the same respect. I deserve the same respect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You are too.
So yeah, after the holiday.